Oh, sorry, Darcy. I was just gonna introduce us friends here real quick. So,
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Emily. I'm videotaping, and I'm videotaping Mia, who's standing here next to this tree. Mia, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Mia.
Can you hear us all right out here in the field?
Yeah.
All right, good to know. So yeah, we're Emily and Mia, and we're gonna be learning about ginseng with you today.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. Take it away, Mia and Emily.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. We are out here in the woods to learn about ginseng today. Ginseng is said to have medicinal purposes. It's supposed to help alleviate the symptoms of ailments like diabetes and ulcers, fatigue, inflammation, tumors, as well as depression. So it has been something that's been highly sought after here in Southeast Ohio. And I guess my follow-up question for everyone would be, what are some of the ways that you use plants? And do you have a favorite way to use plants, whether it's eating or medicine or basket weaving? I would love to hear from everyone about their favorite ways to use plants.
Okay, so the question is, in your life, how do you use plants? Can you think of any? You can unmute yourself or you can type it in the chat.
I have a garden. That's how I have it. Our garden was in the video, remember?
And what do you do with the plants in your garden?
Like we have like food. If we run out of food, like tomatoes, strawberries, which never grew, eggplant to like make a meal with them. And we have baby tomatoes. They're very small.
I love tomatoes. They're probably my favorite vegetable to eat.
All right, so Mia's favorite way to use plants is tomatoes. She eats tomatoes. Anyone else use plants? Any other type of plants? Maybe besides things that you find in a garden? Maybe some things that you find out in the woods?
I made a pizza with veggies on it. It was a veggie pizza.
Ooh, okay, you don't need to talk about veggie pizza this early in the morning, or I'm gonna really... That is also a way that I like to use plants. Anyone else?
That's what came out.
June shared that they also have a garden that doesn't just have like vegetables to eat, but also herbs for different flavors. Any wild plants? Wild plant for anything? I went out with some friends a little while ago and built a fort out of some of the plants that we found in the woods. Oh, aloe for sunburn. Grace says that is a good one. A lot of people keep aloe plants at home that you can use to make your skin feel better. Oh, and Julie finds persimmons in the forest to eat. That's a tree that grows wild around here that you can eat. Harvesting tomatoes. Everyone agrees about tomatoes. Awesome.
Yeah.
And here's a little fun fact for everyone. Well, I guess first I want to ask, does anyone know where the name ginseng comes from?
It comes from it looking like a man.
Very, very good. Ginseng comes from the Chinese characters that stand for man root. So yes, whoever had that answer is correct. Yeah, I think now we are gonna do some walking around out here in the forest, and Emily is gonna take over.
Right, let me...
Actually, I'm gonna share my screen just for a second, if you don't mind, to show people a picture of why they call it manroot, in case that's a new
Go for it, Darcy.
Perfect.
for you. You can see over on the side, does it look like a person to you? with maybe legs or a head.
I like the one on the left that looks like a person laying on their side.
Oh yeah, like a lounging man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Chinese medicine, which there is sort of where ginseng is most popular, the more it looks like a man, the more powerful they think the medicine is. So we talked about using plants mostly for food and to make us feel good that way. And people used the roots for food for ginseng, and then gradually they realized, wow, I feel extra good, even better than just like eating a carrot or something. And they started to associate it with feeling lots of energy, like a strong man. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Back to you, Mia.
Thanks, Darcy.
Mhm.
All right. So the first way to use ginseng someday is to know where you can find ginseng. And I should mention that ginseng is a very sensitive plant that is threatened in our area because it has been taken so often for those medicinal properties. So any ginseng that I find out in the woods, I'm not going to take because I have no need for it. But historically, people have hunted ginseng or found ginseng to dig up that root that looks like a man to sell it. Can anyone guess, just a wild guess, how much you think ginseng is worth per pound? So if you found a pound of that root that looked like a man, how much would you pay for it? What do you think it's worth?
100.
What did you say?
800.
Did you read the blog post? 800 is pretty accurate, and I know that prices sometimes fluctuate depending on how the economy is doing, but it's really valuable. People will pay 800 to 1,000, sometimes more for ginseng. So finding ginseng is sometimes said to be difficult. Darcy told me that there's a Chinese saying that ginseng will get up in the middle of the night and wander around, making it harder to find. But you can be a good ginseng hunter if you know what habitat that ginseng grows in. So I'm going to tell you a little bit what kind of habitat ginseng favors, and then we're going to do some hunting for it. So ginseng prefers to be on slopes, so areas that are sort of at a downward angle, but not too steep, because ginseng likes moist soil that is well drained. So the slope allows for the water to drain down, but if it's too steep, then there's erosion, which means that the water carries away the soil and could make it so that ginseng can't take root in that area. So it likes moist, well-drained soil. It doesn't like soil that is compacted. So soil that's been like stomped down a lot, not ginseng's favorite place to be. It doesn't like clay soil. So clay soil, doesn't let a lot of water pass through and is really hard packed. So ginseng doesn't like that. And really important is the amount of shade that ginseng gets. So it likes around like 65% shade. It doesn't like a lot of sun because the sun can burn the leaves of a ginseng plant, similar to how it can burn our skin, and we might need aloe for sunburn, as Grace mentioned. So it likes 65% shade. It still needs some sun. That way it can still photosynthesize and get the nutrients that it needs, but it can't handle a lot of sun. So it doesn't like areas that are muddy or puddly. It's got to be well drained. What else? Ginseng also likes to be in areas with big trees like black walnuts, tulip trees, and sugar maples. And the reason that it likes those trees is because when the fall comes around and the leaves fall off the trees and hit the ground and start to deteriorate, like here, I'm going to show you some leaf litter on the ground, like all these leaves here, dying in the fall, returning to the soil, it releases calcium. And that calcium in the soil is ginseng's like vitamin. It takes up that calcium and it really helps the ginseng grow nice and strong. So there's all our clues for what ginseng likes in terms of a habitat. So, someone else says they grow it along beech and maples. That's good to know. Yeah, so there's lots of trees in this area of Southeast Ohio that ginseng gets its nutrients from. So yeah, our clues are that it likes slopes that are north and east facing. I know you can't see what direction this slope is facing right now, but it likes north and east facing slopes because it's a little bit cooler, a little less sun, and a bit moister than south and west facing slopes. And it likes well-drained soil, moist, 65% shade, 35% sun. All right, so now I'm gonna take you on a little stroll and we're gonna look at some areas here in this forest. And I'm gonna ask you if you think it is a good spot for some ginseng to grow. So we'll start right here. All right, so I'm in this area. You can see above me the trees. This is what the forest floor looks like. What are you noticing about this area where I'm standing right now? And using what I just told you about the slope and the shade that ginseng likes, do you think this is a good place for ginseng to grow? And anyone can chime in with what they're seeing or what they think this habitat might do for ginseng. And it's okay if you don't have a good answer. Oh, someone said
pretty sunny.
Pretty sunny.
Some people say maybe okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little sunny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that opening in the trees up top.
Yeah, so that's why I picked this spot here.
Yeah.
There's a gap in the canopy here with, yeah, a lot of sun coming through. So I'm just standing here noticing that it's a bit brighter than it was when I was down there where Mia's at. So that indicates that there's more sunlight coming through. So yeah, I would think that this might be a bit too sunny for ginseng. Probably doesn't meet that 65% shade requirement. All right, good job. All right, I'm gonna take you to another spot somewhere up here. No, you can't see it, but this is a steep hill. So hopefully I don't fall down it. All right, I am at this spot right here. What do you notice about this? Do you think this would be a good
It's kind of, the image has hung up for a second there, Emily, but maybe we'll be able to see where you are in a second.
All right. Well, if you can't, just let me know and I'll describe to you where I'm at.
Okay, I can see the trail now. Maybe if you hold still for a second, it can catch up. Will you describe a little about where you're at?
Yeah. So I'm standing on a trail, and I picked this spot to ask you all about whether or not it's a good spot for ginseng, because this trail is pretty darn compacted. So you can see lots of people have walked on this, and that's an indicator that the soil is not going to be a good place for ginseng to grow because it's so compacted that ginseng probably wouldn't favor that. Someone says it's too sloped. Yeah, this slope next to me is pretty steep. There's a bit of erosion happening, so the ginseng probably wouldn't be able to take root. I mean, you could see some of these other plants here. The roots have just been exposed from all of the water flowing off of this compacted trail. So yeah, that's why I picked this spot and don't think that it's a good spot for ginseng. But we're gonna move on to one last place, and I'll ask you all what you think about that spot. Man, it is chilly out here this morning. Underprepared for this. If you go ginseng hunting today, bring a jacket. All right, this is gonna be our last spot here. So what do you all think about this habitat that we're looking at?
It looks pretty shady.
Yeah, I agree. I lost some of the sunshine, so it's a bit colder.
June agrees that it looks nice and shady.
Yeah.
The soil looks like it'd be a good soil for ginseng to live.
Mia, what do you think?
I agree. I think this is.
We can't really hear Mia from where you're standing.
Mia is saying that she thinks this is a good spot for ginseng to grow. We got a bit of a slope here. We can tell you that this slope is facing north. You'll just have to trust us on that. We got a good amount of shade. Got a little bit of sunlight coming through. And, you know, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that there might be ginseng right in this particular spot. I bet you never saw that coming. All right, so now Mia's going to talk to you about what ginseng looks like, how it grows, and what these nice little red berries are. Do you want me to film it, Mia, or do you want to film?
You can
Okay.
film it. You can just hold it exactly like you are. That's perfect. Yeah, so here we have a ginseng plant, as you guessed. And this ginseng plant happens to have 3 prongs. You can count them here, 1, 2, 3. So if we had to guess, this plant is probably 3 to 4 years old. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. When a ginseng seed is planted, it takes 2 years for that seed to sprout. Ginseng seeds have double dormancy, which means exactly that, in that it takes 2 winters for that seed to sprout in the spring. So yeah, each prong has leaves, and if we look at the structure here, the stem is long in between the bottom leaves and this top leaf. And then the red berries are in the middle. This one happens to have 2 berries. They don't always have 2 berries. They can have several or just 1. What else do I want to say about this?
So Mia mentioned that they have double dormancy. So if a seed were to go into this ground right now, when do you all think that it would come up, knowing that it takes 2 winters for the seed to then sprout into a ginseng plant? Any guesses on that? When it would come up?
Fall or in the spring or maybe even winter. I don't know.
So if we planted these seeds today, which we are going to do, they would come up in the spring of
2022.
2022.
So it'll take this winter, which is winter 2020, and then it'll take winter of 2021, and then it'll start to sprout in the spring of 2022. And the way that ginseng grows is that it won't look like this when it starts to come up. The first year that a ginseng sprouts as a seedling, it'll only have 1 of these prongs rather than 3. So more prongs, so the second year that it comes up, it'll only have 2 of its prongs. And then the third year it comes up, it might get a 3rd prong. And it can start producing berries when it has 2 prongs. And then when it has this in plants. So I think Mia is actually going to plant the seeds that are inside of these red berries.
Yes, and one more thing I just wanted to mention, the more prongs a plant has, and the older it is, the bigger the root is.
Mm-hmm.
Which we'll talk about a little bit later, but you don't want to harvest a plant that is too young, because the root is not developed yet.
Yeah, so if you think about a lot of plants in your garden, right? Like you plant a tomato plant or carrots, and they have their whole life in just 1 year. You harvest them and then they die, and that's it, just 1 season. But ginseng can live to be, no one really even knows how old it can get. Once it gets to a certain size, it doesn't get any bigger, and it could be 50, 60, maybe even 100 years old. We don't know. So that's why it's so slow to grow. and so slow to start making seeds in those berries. And that's why it's kind of a plant that is vulnerable to being over harvested, because it takes so long for new ginseng to grow.
All right.
Okay.
So Mia is going to plant the seeds that we found on this here ginseng plant by crushing the berries and getting the seed out. And then she's just going to put it gently underneath the leaf litter and topsoil, not too far down, maybe like half an inch. So that berry, the first one was one seed, and inside the other berry was another seed. Sometimes the berries can hold two seeds. So she's just gonna dig up a little bit there, not much, and then she's gonna put the seed in and brush it over. And then hopefully in spring 2022, there might be a little ginseng seedling next to this boy.
How do you all think that those seeds get planted if Mia doesn't come to the woods and scrape back the leaves and put them gently in the dirt? How else might those seeds get planted?
Birds eating them, maybe?
Yeah, birds are really important to the ginseng. So there's a kind of bird in particular called a wood thrush, which is a bird kind of like a robin, and it eats the berries. And a lot of birds, when they eat the berries, they end up crushing the seeds. So that doesn't really help the ginseng plant, because then the seeds are crushed, and when they poop them out, they can't grow. But the wood thrush, when it eats the berry, doesn't crush the seeds and poops out those seeds whole. So this bird and the ginseng are they kind of rely on each other. You could call it a symbiotic relationship. They both get something out of it.
Ooh.
Darcy, I also read that wood thrushes can regurgitate the ginseng seed, so they can eat it, and then within like 5 to 30 minutes, sometimes they just throw up the seed in a place maybe nearby, maybe wherever they can get within 30 minutes. And if it's the right habitat, that ginseng seed might come up in a couple springs. So
I didn't realize that. Maybe that's why maybe that regurgitation, that little vomiting, is why they treat the seeds better.
yeah, where if you were like a raccoon and you were nice and hungry and saw those red berries, I'm sure you would go in and not really think about, whether or not you're crushing a ginseng seed. Oh, someone asked, do deer eat it? Yeah, one of the dangers to ginseng is that deer often browse the leaves. So I don't know if that's what happened here, but you can see that part of this leaf is missing. It could have been some kind of like fungus or blight, or it also could have been a deer munching on it. But deer love to eat ginseng leaves, and sometimes they eat the berries, but they also would crush the seeds to the point where it wouldn't really spring up the same way that a whole seed would.
So that's something to think about with the deer. So sometimes, because we don't have any big predators in Ohio anymore, like wolves, or we don't have many bears that would hunt deer, sometimes our deer populations get really high. How do you think it might impact the ginseng if we had an unusually high number of deer one year?
There won't be too much ginseng. The deer could eat it all up.
Yeah, it could be.
Crush the seeds, and that wouldn't be able to regurgitate or come back out.
The good thing is, so if it's a young plant, if the deer eats it, that might be really hard. It might not come back. The older plants, because they have those big roots underground that stores lots of energy, they might be able to come back up the next year. But yeah, that's why we kind of like need the balance of the right number of things. Okay, we have about 5 more minutes, Mia and Emily. So what would you like to focus
Yeah,
on?
so the last thing I wanted to talk about is just the ethics of harvesting ginseng, because it's such a threatened plant. So we talked about the seeds and the berries. One of the ways that you can protect ginseng is, if you're a ginseng hunter, is to not take the roots of plants that are not mature, meaning that they're not full grown. So a plant that is like adult or mature is considered like 7 to 10 years old, and that's when it becomes a bit safer to harvest the plant. And the reason being, when it's 7 to 10 years old, that means that the plant has had like 4 to 5 years of producing those red berries with the seeds inside. So it had more chances for the seed to be eaten by a wood thrush and pooped out or thrown up and hopefully come up as a new ginseng plant. When you take a ginseng plant that is not very old or mature, has maybe just recently started making berries, that means that that plant has not had a lot of chances for the seeds to disperse and make new ginseng plants. So you might be taking a ginseng plant without other ones there to replace it, meaning it would reduce the number of ginseng plants in the area. So ginseng harvesters often only take plants that are 7 to 10 years old, but they also only take 10% of what they can find. So if Mia and I found like 10 of these ginseng plants here, and if we were ginseng hunters with a permit, because you need a permit to hunt ginseng in some parts of Southeast Ohio, like the Wayne National Forest, say, we would only take 1 out of 10. That way there's 9 other plants to produce berries with seeds so that more ginseng can grow. Another thing, you come across a ginseng plant with those red berries, it's good practice to replant those berries and seeds in an area nearby, the way Mia and I did, so that we know that those seeds have a chance to spring up into new ginseng plants. Another suggestion is if you really are interested in ginseng and maybe what it tastes like and the properties of it, instead of taking the root, you can take the leaves of the plant, which doesn't hurt the plant, and then you can use those leaves to brew tea or to dry out and use in any way you want, maybe put it in salad, and that doesn't take the root so that the plant doesn't die and has a chance to continue making these leaves and the berries and continue its life as a ginseng plant. So I'm not going to take the root of this ginseng plant or any ginseng plant that I find, but if I was really interested in growing ginseng and harvesting it someday, I could buy seeds from Rural Action. Right now, our organization is selling ginseng seeds, and you could plant some ginseng with some grown-ups, and someday soon, maybe in like a couple years, you could have a healthy ginseng patch that you could harvest and take care of. So that's pretty cool. So that was the last thing that I wanted to say, that there's ways to harvest ginseng that keep the patches healthy and growing in numbers and not reduce the numbers of plants that we have in the area. Mia, do you have anything you want to add?
I'm really curious about hearing everyone's stories, if there are any in this group, about ginseng.
Yeah, have any of you ever harvested ginseng with your family members or friends or grown-ups? Have you ever used ginseng? Do you have any connection to ginseng in your family? Yeah, feel free to tell us. And I know it's 11, so if some of you have to hop off, that's all right too. But I'd love to hear stories too.
We planted ginseng last year at school.
Ooh.
What school do you go to that you planted ginseng?
Solid ground.
Cool.
I haven't planted ginseng before, but I would like to say a fun fact about an animal, if that's okay.
Oh, for sure. Go for it.
So orangutans use plants when their arms get sore to fix the muscles when they're swinging on vines.
Whoa, my muscles would get really sore too, so I would do the same thing.
So
They
orangutans
pretty much gum them up and like the little moist, like a little liquid chewy gummy thing comes out, and they grab it and they shred it on their arms to have it fix their muscles and stuff. It's a really good cure for it.
That's really cool that orangutans also know how to use plants as medicine. I used to work at a park where there were grizzly bears, and the grizzly bears also would eat certain plants when they needed the medicine.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah. Anyone else have any experiences with ginseng? There's a long tradition of gathering ginseng in the woods here in Southeast Ohio because it is worth a lot of money, and Michelle pointed out that it was one of the first things that we exported from the Americas, so that was sold from here in the US to other countries, to China, and so it is really important part of our tradition here. A lot of people I've met have like learned from their grandpas how to find ginseng or how to look for it. But it is
Healthy.
at risk because there's fewer patches of woods, and because sometimes people really need money, and maybe they don't harvest only 1 out of 10, maybe they harvest too many. So it is really great for us to learn how to protect it. And if you are able to, if you have some woods, you could plant some in there, and then you don't need to worry about over harvesting it because you know that you planted it and there's more. Michelle, you mentioned that you're going to plant some ginseng, or maybe you have already. Do you have anything to share about what that experience is like? Well, that's fine. If you are interested, you can buy ginseng seeds from Rural Action. We're not doing this for advertising, but just so you know, it's a resource if you want it. So just get in touch. Does anyone have any questions or more stories? Bye, June.
Bye, June.
Okay, well, as always, if you think of anything, you can send me an email or leave a comment on the youngnaturalistsclub.com blog. And we had so much fun learning about ginseng with you. Thank you all for all your great ideas and thoughts.
Good job.
Thanks, Erin. You're so supportive. Next week's going to be all about caterpillars. September's a good, oh, I see some clapping. Awesome. September's a good time to find caterpillars. So see you next time.
Bye. Thanks, friends.
Thanks, Emily and Mia.
Bye.